Day 1. Flight from Kathmandu to Lukla and hike from Lukla to Pakding. First, we woke up early in the morning to fly from the capital of Nepal, Kathmandu, to Lukla in a small 15-seater plane. This plane ride had gorgeous views of several mountain ranges in the Himalayas. I was really anticipating landing in the most dangerous airport in the world, the Tenzing Hillary Airport, which is in Lukla, with an incredibly short runway. The plane landing on this runway was a really cool thing to witness. After we got off the plane, we made our way to a tea house and organized our hiking gear and belongings, and then we were off on our hike to Pakding. On the way, we had to stop to get our visas and permits, but soon we continued. I was really tired during this hike, and I wasn't performing my best as I was a little jet-lagged. Eventually, we stopped for lunch and kept going. Once we reached Pakding, we had our dinner, and our guide gave us an overview of the next day, just as he did every day on our hike to EBC. Overall, the hike from Lukla to Pakding was around 3 hours. This day was very interesting, and I had a great time, and it definitely kicked off our trip on a great note. Day 2. Pakding to Namche Bazaar. First, we woke up early in Pakding as we had a long day of hiking ahead of us. We ate breakfast, we got our hiking gear packed in our backpacks, and we got started on our hike. This day was my favorite day of the whole hike to EverestBaseCamp. This was because the views were absolutely breathtaking, and we passed through many different villages along the way, which meant we got to meet many locals. We even met 2 children and got to talk and play with them. This was a really fun experience as I got to interact with the locals and meet new people. On the way to Namche Bazaar, we had lunch in a village with great views of the mountains. In addition, at this lunch place, there were many dogs and puppies, and earlier me and my dad had bought dog-friendly biscuits as we knew there were going to be dogs along the way. Feeding these dogs was really fun as I have a dog of my own and I felt really happy feeding the dogs we met along the way. On this hike, we walked on many suspension bridges, including the famous Hillary Bridge, which is named after the mountaineer and one of the first people to summit Mount Everest, Sir Edmund Hillary. I loved walking on these suspension bridges as the views were amazing. Parts of this hike were challenging, as there were lots of sections of the trail that were steep and narrow, but eventually we made it to Namche Bazaar. Overall, the hike from Pakding to Namche Bazaar took around 7 hours for our group, but this was definitely an enjoyable hike and my favorite day of the hike to EverestBaseCamp. Day 3. The Acclimatization Day in Namche Bazaar. This was our first acclimatization day on the hike to EverestBaseCamp, and it was a very fun day. We started early in the morning on our hike, which meant that we got to see some of the local kids going to school. On the hike, we also saw the school, houses, and other places in Namche Bazaar. This hike was a little challenging, but after hiking for a while, we reached the Everest View Hotel, which used to be the highest restaurant in the world. At the Everest View Hotel, we had tea, we ate some snacks, and then we got started on our way back to Namche Bazaar. On the way back, we met this kind lady who sold us bracelets, and she talked to us. She was really nice, and it was a great experience meeting her. The acclimatization hike took around 4 hours, and the views were absolutely breathtaking. After we got back from the acclimatization hike, we had some time on our hands as the hike only took around 4 hours, so we visited the Sherpa Barista Cafe. Many well-known hikers and adventurers have visited this cafe, and I got to see a wall with pictures of all the accomplished people that came to this cafe. It was really inspiring, and I really enjoyed our visit to the cafe. This acclimatization day was definitely one of the highlights of my hike to EBC, and I really enjoyed it. Day 4. Namche Bazaar to Tengboche. On this day we had to wake up early to start our hike, and this hike had amazing views. It took our group around 7 hours to reach Tengboche, and once we reached Tengboche we visited the monastery. It was a great experience as the monastery was beautiful and it was very peaceful. Tengboche was a smaller village than Namche Bazaar and the other villages we had visited, and from our tea house in Tengboche we could see a view of Mount Everest. It was really cool to be able to wake up and see the view once we went outside. Although once we got our rooms, we realized our floor didn't have any bathrooms, so we had to go downstairs whenever we had to use them, which was a rough experience since temperatures dropped below negative 20 degrees Celsius at night. Overall, this hike was challenging and enjoyable, and being in Tengboche was a memorable experience. Day 5. Tengboche to Dingboche. In my opinion, this hike was easier than the other days, although we were rising in altitude. This hike took around 6 hours for our group, and it had many bridges and villages along the way, which was nice. Once we reached Dingboche, we went on a walk around the village and we saw the hospital, houses, shops, and more. We also saw this unique heating system that the locals used, which basically reflects the sun to create heat. I thought this was really cool as I had never seen anything like it. Dingboche was a beautiful village and it had beautiful views of the mountains. At our tea house, showers were available, but we chose not to shower as it isn't recommended at that altitude. Me and my dad were happy that we got an attached bathroom to our rooms, as it was easier than walking far to go to the bathroom at night since temperatures did drop below negative 20 degrees Celsius, so it was nice having easy access to the bathroom. Overall, this day was really fun and it was a great experience. Day 6. The acclimatization day in Dingboche. In my opinion, the views on this hike were some of the best views of the whole trip. The views of the mountains were absolutely breathtaking, and there were many different spots to take pictures. Although I enjoyed this hike, it was pretty difficult for me as my body started slightly reacting to the altitude, so I had to go at a slower pace. There was an option to go above 5,000 meters on this acclimatization hike, but our group chose not to go that far as we didn't want to tire ourselves out as we needed energy for the next few days of hiking. From Dingboche and during the acclimatization hike, we could see many different mountains including Alma de Blanc, Lhotse, and the one and only Everest. It was really great to be able to see some of the tallest mountains in the world throughout the hike to EBC and on this acclimatization hike. Although this day was challenging and pretty tiring, it was a great experience and I enjoyed it. Day 7. Dingboche de la Buche. In my opinion, this hike was one of the most difficult days, and we increased in altitude quite a bit. During the hike, we came across a few animals, mostly yaks, and there was quite a bit of snow and ice on the ground during this hike. On the hike to La Buche, we also saw an Everest memorial, which is dedicated to mountaineers that have lost their lives. This was sad to see, but seeing how these mountaineers took challenges to achieve great things in their lives was inspiring. The hike to La Buche took around 7 hours, the views were absolutely beautiful, and it was a great experience. Day 8. La Buche to Everest Base Camp, then to Gorkshape. This day was the final day of our trek to Everest Base Camp. In my opinion, this day was the hardest day of the whole trek, and it was quite the experience. The views on this hike were beautiful, and we got to see breathtaking views of the Khumbu Glacier. This hike was tough as the terrain was quite rocky and the altitude was really starting to affect me through headaches and tiredness. After a few hours of hiking, we stopped for lunch at Gorkshape and then continued our journey to base camp. This hike was quite difficult, so when anyone in our team felt down, we would try to cheer each other up so that all of us could make it to base camp. During this hike, me and my dad met some people that were preparing for their expeditions to the peak of Mount Everest. It was really nice to be able to talk to them and talk about their experiences and their plans for summiting Everest. The Khumbu Glacier was definitely something I had been looking forward to seeing during the hike to EBC, so finally being able to see gorgeous views of it was definitely something that kept me going during this tough day. After hours of hiking, we finally reached Everest Base Camp. Once we reached base camp, I felt accomplished and proud of this achievement, and I was grateful that I could experience this accomplishment alongside family and friends. When we reached base camp, we took a few photos, walked around, and then started hiking down to Gorkshape, where we spent the night. Without the help of our guides and Sherpas, this hike wouldn't have been possible, as they were constantly supporting us through this 8-day journey to EBC. Hiking to Everest Base Camp was truly an amazing experience, and I learned so much from this journey.